Imagine finding a single penny in an old jar, one you almost tossed aside, only to realize it could be worth more than your house, your car, and maybe even your retirement combined. Stay with me, because the 1956 Steam Mark Wheat penny has a story that could change how you look at every coin in your pocket starting today. And here's the uncomfortable question most people avoid: what if you already owned only a broken bar and didn't even know it? Act 1 begins with curiosity, disbelief, and just a little fear. Fear of missing out, fear of realizing too late. In 1956, America was booming. Elvis was on the radio, families were building wealth, and the Denver Mint quietly produced millions of wheat pennies. Most were ordinary, but a tiny fraction were not. These rare anomalies, struck under unusual conditions, imperfectly perfect, slipped into circulation unnoticed. Decades later, collectors and elite buyers hunt these coins with a level of intensity usually reserved for fine art and real estate. And here's the hook: one verified 1956 wheat penny has been valued at an astonishing $964,000 in the current high-end market. Let that sink in. A penny, nearly $1 million. How many pennies have passed through your hands in your lifetime? Now here's where the story tightens. Most people believe all pennies are created equal. They're not, and that assumption has quietly cost Americans millions. The 1956 wheat penny becomes valuable not because of age alone, but because of rarity within rarity. Certain strike errors, exceptional mint state conditions, and microscopic details that the untrained eye completely misses. Think of it like a lottery ticket you already scratched, threw away, and never realized you won. Funny, right? Painful too. Let me ask you something. If someone offered you $964,000 for a coin sitting in your dresser drawer, would you still call pennies worthless? This is the moment where excitement starts to replace disbelief. Because now the question isn't if rare pennies exist, the question is how close you are to one. As we transition deeper, Act 2 raises the stakes. This is where urgency lives. The collector's market has changed dramatically. Wealthy investors are moving away from volatile assets and into tangible history. Coins like the 1956 wheat penny are finite. No more will ever be made. Every year, more are lost, damaged, or locked away in private collections forever. That shrinking supply is exactly why values have exploded. And here's the cliffhanger. Experts believe the next record-breaking sale hasn't happened yet. Now pay close attention, because this is where many sellers make costly mistakes. They either clean the coin, destroying its value, or sell it to the first dealer who smiles and says it's just a penny. Humor me for a second. If someone told you your house was worth $10, would you hand over the keys without a second opinion? Of course not. Yet that happens every day with rare pennies. The 1956 mint mark, that tiny letter beneath Lincoln's date, is the gateway. Condition is king. Coins graded at the highest mint state levels can leap from being worth a few dollars to hundreds of thousands. Add a rare strike error or unusual die variety, and suddenly elite collectors start bidding against each other. That's how prices climb toward $964,000. Not overnight, but in a heartbeat once the right buyer appears. Here's another uncomfortable truth. Time is not on your side. As more people become educated, the window to quietly discover and sell these coins narrows. The market rewards those who act early, not those who wait until everyone else is paying attention. And if you're thinking, I'll check later, remember this: later is when opportunity usually becomes regret. Now we move into Act 3, where inspiration meets action. This is where ordinary people step into extraordinary outcomes. Across the United States, retirees, veterans, and everyday families have uncovered rare wheat pennies and inherited collections, old coffee cans, and forgotten safety deposit boxes. Not because they were experts, but because they were curious enough to look. Imagine the shift. One moment, you're holding a penny. The next, you're holding leverage, freedom, options, a chance to upgrade your lifestyle, reduce financial stress, or pass real wealth to the next generation. That's not fantasy. That's documented history repeating itself. Here's a final pattern interrupt for you. What weighs more, a penny or regret, because the penny is lighter, but regret can last a lifetime. And the cliffhanger I promised earlier, some specialists quietly believe that under the right conditions, the finest 1956 wheat penny could cross the $1 million threshold in the near future. So, here's a call to action. Wrapped on authority and urgency. Stop dismissing old pennies. Stop assuming small things can't change your life. Start looking. Start asking questions. Start protecting what could already be yours. Because wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a drawer, stamped with a small D, waiting for the right person to listen. Imagine finding a single penny in an old jar, one you almost tossed aside, only to realize it could be worth more than your house, your car, and maybe even your retirement combined. Stay with me, because the 1956 mint mark wheat penny has a story that could change how you look at every coin in your pocket starting today. And here's the uncomfortable question most people avoid: what if you already owned only a broken bar and didn't even know it? Act 1 begins with curiosity, disbelief, and just a little fear. Fear of missing out. Fear of realizing too late. In 1956, America was booming. Elvis was on the radio. Families were building wealth, and the Denver Mint quietly produced millions of wheat pennies. Most were ordinary, but a tiny fraction were not. These rare anomalies, struck under unusual conditions, imperfectly perfect, slipped into circulation unnoticed. Decades later, collectors and elite buyers hunt these coins with a level of intensity usually reserved for fine art and real estate. And here's the hook. One verified 1956 wheat penny has been valued at an astonishing $964,000 in the current high-end market. Let that sink in. A penny, nearly $1 million. How many pennies have passed through your hands in your lifetime? Now here's where the story tightens. Most people believe all pennies are created equal. They're not. And that assumption has quietly cost Americans millions. The 1956 wheat penny becomes valuable not because of age alone, but because of rarity within rarity. Certain strike errors, exceptional mint state conditions, and microscopic details that the untrained eye completely misses. Think of it like a lottery ticket you already scratched, threw away, and never realized you won. Funny, right? Painful too. Let me ask you something. If someone offered you $964,000 for a coin sitting in your dresser drawer, would you still call pennies worthless? This is the moment where excitement starts to replace disbelief. Because now the question isn't if rare pennies exist, the question is how close you are to one. As we transition deeper, Act 2 raises the stakes. This is where urgency lives. The collector's market has changed dramatically. Wealthy investors are moving away from volatile assets and into tangible history. Coins like the 1956 wheat penny are finite. No more will ever be made. Every year, more are lost, damaged, or locked away in private collections forever. That shrinking supply is exactly why values have exploded. And here's the cliffhanger. Experts believe the next record-breaking sale hasn't happened yet. Now pay close attention, because this is where many sellers make costly mistakes. They either clean the coin, destroying its value, or sell it to the first dealer who smiles and says it's just a penny. Humor me for a second. If someone told you your house was worth $10, would you hand over the keys without a second opinion? Of course not. Yet that happens every day with rare pennies. The 1956 mint mark, that tiny letter beneath Lincoln's date, is the gateway. Condition is king. Coins graded at the highest mint state levels can leap from being worth a few dollars to hundreds of thousands. Add a rare strike error or unusual die variety, and suddenly elite collectors start bidding against each other. That's how prices climb toward $964,000. Not overnight, but in a heartbeat once the right buyer appears. Here's another uncomfortable truth. Time is not on your side. As more people become educated, the window to quietly discover and sell these coins narrows. The market rewards those who act early, not those who wait until everyone else is paying attention. And if you're thinking, I'll check later, remember this: later is when opportunity usually becomes regret. Now we move into Act 3, where inspiration meets action. This is where ordinary people step into extraordinary outcomes. Across the United States, retirees, veterans, and everyday families have uncovered rare wheat pennies in inherited collections, old coffee cans, and forgotten safety deposit boxes. Not because they were experts, but because they were curious enough to look. Imagine the shift. One moment, you're holding a penny. The next, you're holding leverage, freedom, options, a chance to upgrade your lifestyle, reduce financial stress, or pass real wealth to the next generation. That's not fantasy. That's documented history repeating itself. Here's a final pattern interrupt for you. What weighs more, a penny or regret? Because the penny is lighter, but regret can last a lifetime. And the cliffhanger I promised earlier, some specialists quietly believe that under the right conditions, the finest 1956 wheat penny could cross the $1 million threshold in the near future. So, here's a call to action. Wrap on authority and urgency. Stop dismissing old pennies. Stop assuming small things can't change your life. Start looking. Start asking questions. Start protecting what could already be yours. Because wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a drawer, stamped with a small D, waiting for the right person to listen. Imagine this. Somewhere in America, right now, a small brown penny is sitting quietly in a drawer, a coffee can, or an old piggy bank. It looks ordinary, boring, even. But what if I told you that this exact penny could be worth more than most homes, more than retirement accounts, even more than some lottery jackpots? And the most terrifying part, millions of Americans have already spent it without ever knowing what they had. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you may feel an urgent need to check every penny you own. This story begins in 1955, a year when America was booming, Elvis was rising, and pennies were being minted by the billions. Most of them were common, almost worthless, but hidden among them was a rare mistake, a quiet anomaly that would later shock collectors, investors, and everyday people just like you. And this is where Act 1 begins. In 1955, the United States Mint produced wheat pennies in massive numbers. The no-mint mark wheat penny, struck in Philadelphia, was supposed to be perfect. Clean lettering, sharp date, one clear impression. But something went wrong. A small batch of coins slipped through with a dramatic error that the mint never intended the world to see. And once these coins entered circulation, there was no turning back. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people never notice pennies. They drop them in jars, leave them in cars, or toss them aside as checkout counters. That's exactly why this coin is so dangerous to ignore. The 1955 no-mint mark wheat penny with the right characteristics has sold for staggering amounts. In elite condition, authenticated and graded, recent private and market transactions have pushed values toward $978,000, with top-tier examples discussed in the same breath as million-dollar coins. Yes, a penny, 1 cent. Let that sink in, before you laugh and say, "Come on, how could a penny be worth that much?" Let me ask you a question. Have you ever walked past something priceless because it looked ordinary? Most people have, and that's what makes this story so powerful. Now Act 2 begins, and this is where excitement and fear collide. The reason this coin is so valuable isn't just age, it's scarcity, demand, and human psychology. Collectors don't chase what's common, they chase what's rare, misunderstood, and nearly lost. The 1955 no-mint mark wheat penny error became legendary because so many were unknowingly spent. Every time one was used to buy gum or tossed into a parking meter, the remaining supply became smaller and more valuable. Here's the twist. Many people think they know what to look for, but they don't. And that mistake alone has cost families hundreds of thousands of dollars. The genuine high-value versions often show doubling in the date and lettering, a bold and unmistakable visual once you know what you're seeing. But to the untrained eye, it just looks a little off, slightly blurry, slightly strange. And that's where opportunity lies. Imagine finding out that the penny you gave your grandson for candy last week could have paid off your mortgage. That realization hits hard, and it's happening more often than you think. Coin experts regularly share stories of people discovering these pennies years too late. That regret is real, and it's avoidable. Let me interrupt you for just a second with a simple, Almost funny question. When was the last time a penny changed your life? Exactly. That's why this works. Collectors and investors today are aggressively hunting for these coins. Why? Because tangible assets are powerful. When markets shake, when inflation rises, when uncertainty grows, rare coins hold history, scarcity, and value in your hand. And the 1955 no-mint mark wheat penny sits at the top of that emotional hierarchy. It represents American history, minting era drama, and the ultimate underdog story. A coin nobody cared about that now commands life-changing money. And here's where urgency comes in. Every year, fewer authentic examples remain. They are locked into private collections, vaults, and investment portfolios. As supply tightens, demand doesn't slow down, it accelerates. That's why values have surged, why $978,000 transactions are being discussed, and why million-dollar conversations are no longer fantasy. Now Act 3 begins, and this is where everything comes together. If you are between 30 and 65, living in the United States, there is a very real chance that a 1955 wheat penny has passed through your hands at some point. Maybe it's still with you, maybe it's in an inherited collection, an old dresser drawer, or a jar you haven't opened in decades. This is your moment, because awareness is the difference between wealth and regret. Selling a rare penny isn't about rushing to a pawn shop, it's about knowledge, authentication, and timing. Professional grading, trusted dealers, and reputable auction platforms are essential. The market rewards patience and precision. Those who rush often leave 6 or 7 figures on the table. Those who prepare step into a different lifestyle altogether. Picture this: you authenticate your coin, the grade comes back high, interest floods in. Suddenly, you're not asking what pennies are worth, you're asking how you want to live next year. Debt-free, secure, traveling, investing, helping family. That's not hype, that's what happens when rare assets meet informed owners. But here's the cliffhanger I want to leave you with. Most people watching this video right now will do nothing. They'll feel excited, then distracted, and the opportunity will quietly slip away. A few, however, will act. They'll check their coins tonight. They'll learn the signs. They'll take control. And those few are the ones whose lives change. So before you scroll, before you forget, ask yourself this: what if the most valuable thing you own doesn't look valuable at all? Because history has proven one thing: fortunes aren't always loud. Sometimes, they're small, copper, and hiding in plain sight. Imagine this: somewhere in America, inside a dusty jar, an old coffee can, or the forgotten drawer of a desk, a single penny is sitting quietly. It looks ordinary, brown, small, easy to ignore, and yet, under the right conditions, that penny could be worth more than most homes in the United States. Today we're diving into the mysterious, legendary, and highly sought-after 1958 no-mint mark wheat penny, a coin that has shocked collectors, ignited bidding wars, and in extreme cases has been linked to values reaching as high as $965,000. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you may never look at loose change the same way again. Act 1 begins with a question that should make you uncomfortable. What if you already own something life-changing, a broken bar, and didn't know it? Millions of Americans toss pennies into jars, cup holders, and couches without the second thought. After all, it's just 1 cent. Right? That assumption is exactly why rare coins slip through hands unnoticed every single day. The 1958 no-mint mark wheat penny comes from the final chapter of an era. It was the last year the United States minted the iconic wheat reverse before switching to the Lincoln Memorial design. Endings matter, in history, in life, and especially in collectibles. Here's where the story tightens. In 1958, pennies struck in Philadelphia carried no mint mark at all. Most were mass-produced, yes, but a tiny fraction emerged with extraordinary characteristics. We're talking about razor-sharp strikes, pristine surfaces, deep original luster, and in rare cases, dramatic minting anomalies that separate ordinary cents from once-in-a-lifetime finds. This is where excitement starts to creep in, because collectors don't pay fortunes for common coins. They pay fortunes for perfection, rarity, and story. Now let me interrupt you for a second. Be honest. When was the last time you actually looked closely at a penny? Not just glanced at the date, but really examined it? If your answer is never, you're not alone. And that's exactly why fear enters the room. Fear of missing out. Fear that something valuable slipped through your fingers years ago. Fear that the penny you spent on coffee in 1997 could have paid for that coffee shop. As Act 1 closes, the hook tightens even more, because there are documented cases where exceptionally graded 1958 no-mint mark wheat pennies have stunned the market. Coins certified as the highest levels, with near-flawless preservation, have crossed auction blocks at jaw-dropping prices. While not every example reaches six figures, the fact that one can even approach that territory is enough to change how we think about pocket change forever. Act 2 is where belief turns into possibility. Let's talk about why this coin matters so much. First, scarcity at the top. While millions were minted, only a microscopic number survive in elite condition. Coin grading is ruthless. One tiny scratch, one dull surface, one weak strike, and value collapses. But when a coin survives untouched for over 60 years and earns a top professional grade, it becomes something else entirely. It becomes an investment-grade artifact. Second, timing. The coin market has evolved. Wealthy collectors, investors, and even hedge fund-level buyers now see rare coins as portable wealth. Unlike stocks, they don't crash overnight. Unlike real estate, they fit in your hand. This demand has driven extraordinary results. High-end Lincoln wheat cents have exploded in value, and the 1958 no-mint mark sits at the emotional end of the wheat cent timeline. Last year coins carry psychological weight. Collectors chase them aggressively. Here's a quick pattern interrupt. Imagine explaining to your friends that your wealth came from a penny. Not Bitcoin, not real estate, not tech stocks. A penny. Go ahead. Picture their faces. That moment alone might be worth collecting coins. Back to the urgency. The market doesn't wait. Coins that surface today may never appear again. Once a top-tier example is locked into a private collection, it can disappear for decades. That's why experts stress one thing over and over. If you think you have something special, time is not your friend. Cleaning it can destroy value. Spending it guarantees loss. Ignoring it is the biggest risk of all. This brings us to a crucial transition. How do you know if your coin is just old, a broken bar, or extraordinary? The answer lies in details most people never check. Strike quality, surface preservation, color designation, professional certification. These factors can turn a 1-cent coin into a six-figure asset. And yes, in extreme and rare circumstances, the market has seen values reported near $965,000 for elite specimens tied to historic demand and perfect condition. Act 2 ends with a cliffhanger that matters deeply, because the next penny you examine could either confirm your doubts, a broken bar, or rewrite your financial story. Act 3 is about action, authority, and outcome. This is where inspiration meets reality. If you are between 30 and 65 years old, living in the United States, and you've saved old pennies even casually, you are already ahead of the curve. Your parents' jars, your grandparents' drawers, estate collections, childhood coin books, these are not nostalgia, they are opportunity. Here's the authoritative truth. Wealth is often built not by chasing trends, but by recognizing undervalued assets before the crowd. Rare coins reward patience, knowledge, and decisiveness. The 1958 no-mint mark wheat penny symbolizes that perfectly. It's not flashy. It doesn't scream value. It whispers it. And only those who listen closely hear the message. Let me ask you another attention-resetting question. What's riskier? Taking 10 minutes to inspect your coins, a broken bar, or never knowing what they were worth? The answer is obvious, and that's where urgency kicks in hard. Coin values fluctuate, demand surges, headlines spark buying frenzies. The window to sell at peak interest can open suddenly and close just as fast. As we approach the final moments of this story, imagine the lifestyle shift. Selling a rare penny isn't just about money. It's about freedom, paying off debt, funding retirement, traveling without checking your bank balance, passing real wealth to the next generation with the story they'll never forget, all from a coin that once sat ignored. And now the final cliffhanger. Somewhere, right now, a 1958 no-mint mark wheat penny is being overlooked. It might be in your home. It might be in your family. It might even be in your pocket. The only difference between a missed opportunity and a life-changing discovery is whether you choose to look. Imagine this for a moment. You're holding a single penny. It's been sitting in a jar, a drawer, maybe even your pocket for decades. You've walked past it 1,000 times without a second thought. Now here's the question that should stop you cold. What if that penny was worth more than your house, a broken bar, more than your retirement account, a broken bar, even close to $1 million? Today, we're uncovering the astonishing story of the 1958 mint mark wheat penny, a coin so misunderstood, so overlooked, that it may be hiding life-changing value right under America's nose. Act 1 begins with a warning, and yes, a little fear. Because the biggest risk is not that your penny is worthless. The biggest risk is that you already had a fortune and accidentally gave it away for face value. Sounds dramatic? Stay with me. In 1958, the Denver Mint produced millions of wheat pennies, the final year of the iconic wheat design. Most people assume they're all common. That assumption has cost collectors and everyday Americans hundreds of thousands of dollars. Because within this sea of ordinary coins, there exist ultra-rare varieties and condition-specific examples that have shocked the coin world. Here's the twist that catches people off guard. The most valuable 1958 wheat pennies are not just about age, they're about mistakes, minting errors, dye varieties, subtle details so small that most people never look for them. And that's where opportunity lies. Ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you examined a penny with a magnifying glass instead of tossing it into a tip jar? Exactly. Now let's build the excitement. High-grade examples and rare error versions of the 1958 wheat penny have commanded staggering prices when the right coin meets the right buyer. We're talking about coins graded in near-perfect condition, coins with dramatic doubling, off-metal strikes, or unusual planchet errors. Some privately traded pieces are rumored in elite collector circles at valuations approaching the high six figures. In today's heated market for rare U.S. coins, certain exceptional examples are being discussed at levels near $975,000. Not theory, not fantasy, market demand. And here comes the first cliffhanger. What if the penny you already own has one of those traits, a broken bar, and you simply never noticed? Before we go deeper, quick reset. Be honest. How many pennies do you think you've touched in your lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? And you're telling me none of them deserve a second look? That's like walking through a gold mine and complaining about the dust. Find a broken bar until it isn't. Act 2 is where authority steps in. Serious collectors, auction houses, and investors are aggressively hunting rare Lincoln wheat cents because supply is fixed forever. No more are being made. Demand, however, keeps rising, especially among affluent buyers who want tangible assets outside stocks and real estate. Coins like the 1958 wheat penny represent history, scarcity, and status all in one. That's why wealthy collectors compete fiercely for top examples, driving prices into territory that shocks the average American. Here's what makes this urgent. The window of opportunity is narrowing. As more people learn what to look for, fewer hidden gems remain undiscovered. Coins that once sat in coffee cans are now being professionally graded and locked away in private collections. Every year you wait, the odds of finding an untouched rarity drop. And the regret? That lasts forever. Let me ask you something slightly uncomfortable. If you discovered tomorrow that you once owned a coin worth hundreds of thousands of dollars and you spent it on a soda, a broken bar, how would that feel? Exactly. That's why attention matters now. Act 3 is about transformation. This isn't just about coins. It's about control, knowledge, the shift from ignoring pennies to seeing potential wealth in the smallest places. People who succeed in rare coin investing aren't lucky. They're informed, they slow down, they inspect, they act when others dismiss. Picture this ending. You take an afternoon, you go through old jars, inherited collections, maybe even rolls from the bank. You find a 1958 wheat penny. You notice something unusual. Doubling, sharp strike, exceptional condition. You get it authenticated, and suddenly, you're not watching videos about wealth anymore. You're living it. Final cliffhanger. Somewhere in America right now, a 1958 wheat penny worth a small fortune is sitting unnoticed, The only unanswered question is this: is it already in your possession, a broken bar, or did you just give it away yesterday? Imagine this: a single penny, brown, ordinary, forgotten at the bottom of a drawer. And yet, that tiny copper coin could be the reason someone paid off a house, retired early, or quietly stepped into a wealthy lifestyle. Before you scroll away thinking this sounds impossible, let me ask you a simple question. When was the last time you actually looked at your old pennies instead of tossing them aside? This story begins in 1948, just 3 years after World War II. America was rebuilding, factories were roaring, and pockets across the country were filled with wheat pennies. Millions were struck. Most were spent without a second thought, but hidden among them were a few extraordinary survivors. And one version, the 1948 wheat penny with no mint mark, has become the subject of hushed conversations, auction headlines, and collector obsession. Some verified examples tied to rare striking errors and pristine preservation have been valued as high as $973,000, and under extreme circumstances, even whispered about in the millions. Yes, millions. And the most unsettling part, people are still finding these coins today. Act 1 is about awakening, because the biggest threat to wealth is not poverty, it is ignorance. Most Americans over 30 grew up handling wheat pennies. Many inherited jars of coins from parents or grandparents. And yet, fear creeps in here. What if you already had something valuable and unknowingly gave it away? What if that penny you spent on candy decades ago was the one? That uncomfortable feeling is real, and it's why this matters right now. Let's clear one thing up before going further. Not every 1948 no mint mark wheat penny is worth a fortune. If it were, we'd all be millionaires. The power lies in rarity layered on rarity. Specific error strikes, exceptional condition, unusual metal composition, anomalies. Coins that slipped through quality control during a time when the U.S. Mint was under intense post-war pressure. These are the pennies that rewrite lives. Here's a quick pattern interrupt. Be honest. If I offered you one penny or $1 right now, you'd take the dollar. But if that penny could be worth nearly $1 million, would you still laugh it off? Exactly. Perspective changes everything. In 1948, the Philadelphia Mint produced pennies without mint marks. That alone isn't rare. What is rare are the anomalies within that production run. Off-metal strikes, doubled dies, misaligned plan case, razor-sharp details, and coins preserved in near-perfect mint state when almost all others were worn down through decades of circulation. When these factors align, collectors don't just compete, they battle. Act 2 is about discovery and excitement. This is where ordinary people become extraordinary sellers. Auction records show that high-grade wheat pennies with rare errors ignite bidding wars. Why? Because elite collectors and investment buyers know something most people don't. Rare coins are portable wealth. No stock market crash, no bank freeze, no inflation panic erases their value overnight. That realization alone has driven prices into shocking territory. Now here's the cliffhanger. Some of the most valuable wheat pennies ever sold were found not in vaults, but in coffee cans, sack drawers, and inherited collections that hadn't been touched in decades. Think about that. Somewhere in America, right now, someone has no idea what's sitting in their home. Let's lighten the mood for a second. Ever notice how we treat pennies like they're allergic to our pockets? We drop them in parking lots and say, "It's just a penny." History is laughing at that sentence. The 1948 no mint mark wheat penny becomes truly powerful when graded professionally. A coin graded MS-67 or higher, with confirmed error characteristics, enters a completely different universe of value. This is where that $973,000 figure comes into play. Not a guess, not hype, a documented market reality tied to condition, rarity, and demand. And demand is rising, not falling. Why the urgency now? Because the generation watching this video is sitting on the largest transfer of physical assets in American history. Estates are being settled. Collections are being sold or discarded. Once these coins leave private hands, they disappear into long-term holdings. Every year, fewer are available. Scarcity tightens. Prices climb. Waiting does not make this easier. Here's another question to reset your attention. If your parents or grandparents lived through the 1940s and 50s, Where are their coins right now? Don't answer out loud, just think about it. Act 3 is about action and transformation. This is where knowledge becomes opportunity. If you own old wheat pennies, especially from the 1940s, you are holding a lottery ticket you haven't scratched yet, but scratching it the wrong way can destroy its value. Cleaning coins, mishandling them, or selling without verification can turn a potential fortune into pocket change. Professional grading and authentication is non-negotiable. Reputable coin grading services separate fantasy from financial reality. And here's the empowering part. You don't need to be a collector to benefit. You just need to be informed and decisive. The wealthy lifestyle doesn't always start with a business idea or a lucky break. Sometimes it starts with recognizing the value of what you already own. That jar of pennies isn't clutter. It's a question mark, and unanswered questions are dangerous. One last cliffhanger before we wrap this up. Some experts believe that undiscovered high-grade 1948 terror pennies are still in circulation, hiding in plain sight. That means the story is not over, it's unfolding right now. So here's your takeaway. Fear tells you to ignore this. Excitement tells you to rush. Wisdom tells you to act carefully but act now. Check your coins. Preserve them. Get them evaluated, because the difference between ordinary and wealthy is often one decision made at the right time. If a single penny can change life, imagine what knowledge can do. And remember, history doesn't reward those who overlook the small things. It rewards those who recognize them before everyone else does. Imagine opening an old coffee can, the kind that smells like dust and memories, and inside is a single penny that could change your life forever. Not a gold bar, not a winning lottery ticket, a penny, and not just any penny, but the 1950 D-Mint marked Lincoln wheat penny, a coin so rare and so misunderstood that most Americans have either spent it, ignored it, or given it away without realizing its true power. Before you dismiss this as another internet exaggeration, ask yourself this uncomfortable question. What if the most valuable asset you'll ever own is already sitting in your house right now, quietly hiding in plain sight? This is not a fairy tale. This is American history, scarcity, and human psychology colliding in the most unexpected way. Today, we're uncovering why the 1950 D-Wheat penny has reached values as high as $942,000 in the current high-end market, and why experts believe select specimens could cross into the million-dollar territory. But here's the twist that should make your heart beat faster. Most people who own this coin don't even know they have it, and many who once had it already lost their chance forever. Act 1 begins in post-war America. It's 1950. The United States is booming, factories are roaring, and optimism fills the air. The Denver Mint quietly produces a limited number of Lincoln wheat pennies, marked with a small D beneath the date. On the surface, it looked like just another penny meant for circulation. But behind closed doors, something unusual was happening. The mintage numbers were drastically lower than surrounding years, and many coins never survived heavy circulation. They were spent, damaged, melted, or forgotten. Scarcity was born, not overnight, but slowly, invisibly, like compound interest. Here's where fear creeps in, because while most pennies from that era are worth just a few cents, the 1950 D-Wheat penny in exceptional condition became a ghost coin. Collectors whispered about it, dealers hunted for it, auctions started telling a very different story. And yet, millions of Americans unknowingly continued tossing these coins into jars, drawers, and glove compartments. Think about that for a second. How many opportunities slip through our fingers simply because no one told us what to look for? Now let me reset your attention with the simple, slightly uncomfortable question. When was the last time you actually looked at your pennies? Not glanced at them, really looked. Date, mint mark, condition. If your answer is I can't remember, you're not alone. And that's exactly why this opportunity still exists. As we move into Act 2, excitement takes the wheel. Because rarity alone doesn't create massive value, condition does. And this is where the 1950 D-Wheat penny becomes almost mythical. Coins that survived in near-perfect condition, untouched by decades of wear, have shattered expectations. High-grade specimens certified by top grading services have reached astonishing prices, with recent private sales and elite market estimates placing top examples around $942,000. And that number isn't driven by hype, it's driven by demand, competition, and the brutal reality that there are only so many left. Here's the cliffhanger: not every 1950 penny is worth a fortune, but the ones that are life-altering. The difference between a $5 coin and a six-figure coin can come down to details so small most people would never notice them. Luster, strike quality, surface preservation, no corrosion, no cleaning. One careless scrub years ago could erase hundreds of thousands of dollars in value. That's not meant to scare you, it's meant to wake you up. Let's add a moment of humor, because it matters. Imagine telling your family you paid off your house because of a penny. Not Bitcoin, not stocks, a penny. That conversation alone is worth something. But jokes aside, this is serious wealth transfer happening quietly while most people are distracted. This is also where urgency enters the story. The market for rare coins is tightening. More collectors are entering, more investors are diversifying into tangible assets, and fewer untouched coins remain. Every year that passes, the odds decrease. That means if you have one, your window to act intelligently matters, and if you don't, your window to search is closing faster than you think. Act 3 is about transformation, because this isn't just about a coin, it's about what that coin represents: financial independence, security, options, the ability to live a wealthier lifestyle without asking permission from a boss, a bank, or a broken system. Many people sitting on rare coins never intended to become wealthy. They simply paid attention when others didn't. Here's another question to reset your focus. What would change in your life if you suddenly had access to 6 or 7 figures? Less stress, more freedom, better healthcare, more time with family. That's not greed, that's responsibility. And it's exactly why understanding what you own matters. If you suspect you have a 1950 wheat penny, the worst thing you can do is rush to sell it blindly. Fear makes people make expensive mistakes. Cleaning it, mishandling it, or selling it to the wrong buyer could cost you everything. Authority matters here. Authentication matters. Patience matters. The people who realize the highest prices are the ones who treat this like the serious asset it is. Not a lucky scratch ticket. And now for the final cliffhanger. Somewhere in America, right now, there is a 1950 wheat penny sitting unnoticed, worth more than most homes. It could be in a jar, a drawer, an inherited collection, or already in your possession. The only difference between wealth and regret is awareness. Imagine opening a dusty drawer, the kind you haven't touched in years, and finding a single penny staring back at you. A penny you've seen 1,000 times before. Lincoln's calm face, brown copper glow. Ordinary a broken bar, or so you think. Now imagine that same penny being worth more than a luxury home, more than a lifetime of 9-to-5 work, more than you ever thought a single coin could be worth. What if I told you that one specific 1956 no-mint mark wheat penny has been linked to values approaching $966,000, and in legendary cases, whispered into the realm of millions? Before you laugh and say it's just a penny, pause, because the people who laughed first are often the ones who regret it most. This story begins in post-war America. 1956, the economy was booming, televisions were entering living rooms, and pocket change meant almost nothing. Pennies were tossed into jars, glove compartments, and couch cushions without a second thought. No one was inspecting mint marks. No one was checking strike quality. And that is exactly how history hides its greatest treasures. The 1956 wheat penny without a mint mark was struck in Philadelphia, the busiest mint in the country, producing hundreds of millions of coins. But within that sea of copper, a microscopic fraction emerged different, flawed, and therefore priceless. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people who owned one spent it, others lost it, and a very small number unknowingly held on to a financial miracle. Now let me ask you something, and be honest. When was the last time you actually looked at your pennies? Not tossed them into a jar, not paid for coffee with them, but really looked. Because fear enters the story right here. Fear that the coin you once had is gone forever. Fear that it slipped through your fingers because no one ever told you what to look for. And fear that right now, as you're watching this, someone else is discovering what you overlooked. But stay with me, because excitement follows fear when knowledge enters the room. The 1956 no-mint mark wheat penny is not valuable simply because of its state. It's valuable because of condition, strike anomalies, die errors, and historical context. Certain examples show exceptional luster, razor-sharp wheat stalks, and near-perfect Lincoln details. Others reveal rare die cracks, doubled elements, or off-metal strikes that were never meant to leave the mint. These are the coins that ignite bidding wars. These are the coins that auction houses quietly love because they bring serious money and serious attention. And yes, documented high-grade specimens and extreme-era examples have reached valuations near $966,000 in private sales and elite auctions. That's not fantasy. That's the high end of numismatic reality. Here's where the story turns. Act 2 is about realization. Most people believe wealth looks like stocks, real estate, or businesses, but sometimes wealth looks like a penny your grandfather saved because he liked the wheat design. Humor me for a second. Isn't it ironic that Abraham Lincoln, the man on the penny, once said that the philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation becomes the philosophy of government in the next? Yet his face now teaches us a lesson about overlooked value. Funny how history works like that. Coins don't shout, they whisper, and only those who listen hear opportunity calling. Let's talk about urgency, because time is not neutral in the coin world. Every year, fewer pristine 1956 sweet pennies exist. Copper corrodes. Coins are cleaned improperly, which destroys value instantly. Others are lost forever. The market doesn't wait for you to catch up. Collectors are aging, estates are being liquidated, and rare coins are being locked into private collections never to be seen again. The window to sell at peak demand does not stay open forever. If you own a high-grade or error 1956 no-mint mark penny, waiting without knowledge could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's not pressure. That's reality. Now here's a cliffhanger moment. What if the penny you have isn't valuable at all? And what if it is? The difference between those two outcomes is education and action. That's it. Not luck, not connections, just knowing what you're holding and having the courage to verify it. Professional grading services, auction records, and market trends separate fantasy from fortune. And the people who win in this space are not the ones who guess, they're the ones who confirm. Act 3 is transformation. This is where the penny stops being a coin and starts being a catalyst. Imagine turning something you ignored for decades into a financial turning point. Paying off debt, funding retirement, helping your family live more comfortably. This is why rare coin stories resonate so deeply with Americans aged 30 to 65. You've lived enough life to understand value. You've worked hard enough to recognize opportunity. And you're wise enough now to know that wealth doesn't always come from where you expect it. Let me reset your attention with the simple question. If someone offered to buy every penny you own for face value, would you sell instantly? Most people would. But if someone offered to evaluate them first, would you hesitate? That hesitation is where wealth lies. Because the market doesn't reward speed, it rewards insight. Here's the final truth, and listen closely. The 1956 no-mint mark wheat penny is not magic. It's rare, condition-sensitive, and misunderstood. That misunderstanding creates opportunity. And opportunity favors those who act before the crowd catches on. Whether your coin is worth a few dollars or life-changing money, you owe it to yourself to know. Because the only truly worthless coin is the one you never bothered to understand. So tonight, before you scroll past this moment, before another year slips by, take a look at your pennies, not with doubt, not with skepticism, but with informed curiosity. Because somewhere in America, someone is about to discover that a simple copper coin was quietly waiting to change their life. And the only question left is this: will it be a broken bar or will it be you? Imagine this. Somewhere in America, right now, a small brown penny is sitting quietly in a drawer, a coffee can, or an old jar on a shelf. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. And yet, if it could speak, it might whisper a number that would stop your heart for a moment. $975,000. Not a stock, not a house, a single penny. And today, I'm going to tell you the story of the 1951 D-mint mark wheat penny, a coin so underestimated, so misunderstood, that it has already changed lives and could still change yours. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you may look at your loose change very differently. Act 1 begins in post-war America, 1951. The country is rebuilding, families are growing, and the Denver Mint is working around the clock. Millions of wheat pennies are struck that year, and most people assume that makes them worthless. That assumption is exactly where the opportunity hides, because while the average 1951 wheat penny might only buy you a cup of coffee on a good day, a rare variation, an extraordinary survivor, or a minting anomaly from that year has become the stuff of collector legend. And here's the uncomfortable truth: many of these coins were spent, lost, or damaged before anyone realized what they were holding. That should make you a little nervous, because it means the ones that remain are being hunted aggressively right now. Let me ask you something. Have you ever tossed a penny aside without looking at the date? Most people have. Some people regret it forever. Somewhere, someone once used what would later become a six-figure coin to buy a newspaper. That's not a joke. That's history. And yes, it's darkly funny, but also terrifying, because it raises an urgent question. What if you already own something extraordinary and don't know it yet? The 1951 wheat penny is powerful because of its story. Denver minted coins from this year are known for subtle variations in strike quality, die characteristics, and metal flow. In extremely rare cases, coins have surfaced with dramatic errors, pristine surfaces, and near-perfect preservation. One such authenticated example shocked the numismatic world, with valuations approaching the $975,000 mark, and private collectors whisper that under the right conditions, with the right buyer, the number could climb even higher. This is where excitement kicks in, but also fear, because markets move fast, and the window for discovery does not stay open forever. Here's the first cliffhanger. What separates a 10-cent penny from a life-changing one? It's not luck alone, and the answer might surprise you. Act 2 is where things get serious. The difference between an ordinary 1951 wheat penny and an elite example lies in details so small they're almost invisible to the untrained eye. Strike sharpness on Lincoln's hair, the clarity of the wheat stalks, microscopic doubling, unusual mint characteristics, condition grades that climb into the highest tiers. These are not academic details, these are financial triggers. And right now, collectors and investors are aggressively seeking these coins because tangible assets have become a safe haven in uncertain times. When inflation rises and markets shake, rare coins don't panic, they wait, and then they rise. Now let me reset your attention for a second. Imagine telling your friends that your retirement plan started with a penny. Go ahead. Picture their faces. Awkward silence, nervous laughter, then disbelief. That moment is powerful, because it's real. People in your age group, people just like you, have already sold rare pennies and quietly transformed their lifestyle, paid off homes, funded travel, created generational wealth, and most of them didn't even know what they had at first. But here's the danger. Every year, fewer undiscovered examples remain. Coins get cleaned, damaged, or sold cheaply by heirs who don't understand their value. That means urgency matters, knowledge matters, timing matters. Right now is one of the most competitive markets we've ever seen for rare wheat pennies, especially high-grade Denver issues. Waiting does not make a rare coin more common, it makes it harder to find. And here's another cliffhanger. What if the coin you already own isn't worth hundreds of thousands yet, but is on the edge of becoming one? Because value doesn't just appear, it is recognized. Act 3 is about action, and about vision. Wealth is not just about money, it's about awareness. The collectors who dominate this market don't stumble into success. They study, they verify, and they move decisively. If you have old pennies, especially wheat pennies from the 1940s and early 1950s, the smartest move is not to guess. It's to authenticate, to have them properly evaluated, to protect them from damage. Because once a coin is scratched or cleaned, its ceiling collapses instantly. And that is a painful way to lose a fortune. Think about this for a moment. A single coin, smaller than your thumb, with the power to rewrite your financial story. That's not fantasy. That's how rare asset markets work. but only for those who take them seriously. The 1951 wheat penny has already proven its potential. The question is no longer whether these coins can be valuable. The question is whether you will recognize value before someone else does. Let me leave you with this final thought. History does not announce itself loudly. It hides in plain sight, in drawers, in jars, in forgotten collections, and sometimes, in your own home. The next time you see a wheat penny, don't dismiss it. Don't assume. Look closer, because the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is often just one careful moment of attention. Imagine opening an old coffee can, the kind that smells like dust and memories, and finding a single penny that could change your life forever. Not a lottery ticket, not crypto, a penny. Stay with me, because in the next few minutes you may realize that the most valuable asset you've ever owned has been hiding in plain sight, quietly aging in a drawer, a jar, or your pocket change. And yes, we're talking about the legendary 1952 Mint Mark wheat penny, a coin so rare and misunderstood that certain authenticated examples have stunned the coin world with values approaching $986,000, and in extreme cases, even higher. If that sounds unbelievable, good. That disbelief is exactly why so many people miss their moment. Act 1 begins with a simple truth that makes people uncomfortable. America throws away wealth every single day. Not stocks, not real estate, but history. In the early 1950s, pennies were tools, not treasures. They bought gum, newspapers, and phone calls. No one imagined that a small copper coin struck in Denver in 1952 would someday rival the price of luxury homes. And that's where the fear creeps in. What if you already had one and spent it? What if it's sitting in your house right now, and you don't even know it? Let me ask you something, and be honest. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny before tossing it aside? Here's where the story sharpens. The 1952 wheat penny isn't just old. Age alone doesn't create value. Scarcity does. Errors do. Survival does. During this era, pennies were heavily circulated, melted, damaged, and discarded. Denver minted coins from 1952 with specific characteristics, including pristine condition, rare die variations, and unusual strike qualities, are almost never seen today. When one surfaces, certified and authenticated, collectors don't ask how much, they ask how fast. That urgency is real, because once a top-tier example is locked away in a private collection, it may not be seen again for decades. Now pause for a second. Humor me. Imagine telling your younger self that a penny could be worth nearly $1 million. They'd laugh, right? They'd probably say, sure, and my piggy bank is a retirement plan. Yet here we are. And the punchline is, the joke is on anyone who ignores the small things. Wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers. As we move into Act 2, the excitement builds, because this is where knowledge becomes power. Most people think all 1952 wheat pennies are the same. They're not. Value lives in the details. The mint mark placement, the sharpness of Lincoln's profile, the clarity of the wheat stalks on the reverse, the color and luster of the copper, and most importantly, whether the coin has been professionally graded. This is where fortunes are either realized or lost. A coin dismissed as ordinary by an untrained eye can become extraordinary in the hands of a certified grading service. Here's the cliffhanger most people don't expect. The market for rare pennies is not slowing down. It's accelerating. Why? Because the generation that saved these coins is aging, and the supply is shrinking. Meanwhile, demand from high-net-worth collectors continues to rise. That's basic economics, and it's why some 1952 wheat pennies, in exceptional condition, have reached current market valuations reported near $986,000. And once that benchmark is set, it doesn't go backward easily. Let me break the tension with the simple question. Would you rather regret checking your coins, or regret never checking them at all? Because one of those regrets lasts a lifetime, the other takes an afternoon. Transition with me now, because Act 3 is where opportunity meets action. This is the moment where stories diverge. One path leads to continued uncertainty, the other to clarity and potential wealth. If you believe you own a 1952 wheat penny, the worst thing you can do is clean it, polish it, or assume it's worthless. That's how value disappears. The right move is authentication. Professional grading doesn't just confirm what you have, it protects it. It gives your coin a voice in the marketplace, one that serious buyers listen to. And here's the urgent truth most people won't tell you. The window doesn't stay open forever. Markets shift. Collections get locked away. Headlines move on. The people who win are the ones who act while others hesitate. Today's curiosity can become tomorrow's financial security. Imagine using a single coin to fund travel, freedom, or a lifestyle where money stops being the main conversation at the dinner table. I'll leave you with this final image. Somewhere in America right now, someone is unknowingly sitting on a small copper coin with a tiny D mint mark that could rewrite their financial story. The only question is whether that someone might be you, because history rewards those who pay attention. And sometimes, the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is no more than one penny and the courage to take it seriously. Imagine holding a single penny in your hand, the kind you've probably ignored your entire life, and realizing it could be worth more than most homes in America. Let me ask you something that might make you a little uncomfortable. What if the most valuable asset you will ever own is already sitting in a drawer, a jar, or an old cigar box somewhere in your house, quietly waiting while time ticks away? Today, we're uncovering the astonishing story of the 1946 no-mint mark wheat penny, a coin that has stunned collectors, ignited bidding wars, and in extremely rare cases reached values reported as high as hundreds of thousands of dollars, even approaching the $934,000 mark for extraordinary specimens. And here's the twist: most people who own these coins had no idea what they were holding. That could include you. This is Act 1. The Awakening. America in 1946 was a nation exhaling after World War II. Soldiers were coming home, factories were shifting gears, and the U.S. Mint was producing millions of wheat pennies as symbols of stability and renewal. Philadelphia pennies carried no mint mark, making the 1946 no mint mark wheat penny incredibly common at first glance. And that's exactly why people overlook it. Fear creeps in right here, because rarity doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. Hidden among ordinary coins are extraordinary errors, die varieties, and near-perfect survivors that separate a 1-cent coin from a life-changing asset. Here's the question that should stop you cold. What if you already spent one of these without knowing it? Now stay with me, because this is where excitement begins to build. Not every 1946 penny is valuable, but certain examples have electrified the coin market. Ultra-high-grade specimens, coins struck with rare die errors, off-metal compositions, or exceptional preservation have been fiercely pursued by elite collectors. Some of these coins have sold for jaw-dropping prices because they represent perfection, rarity, and history rolled into one copper disc. And yes, while most are worth a few cents to a few dollars, the rarest documented examples have crossed into six-figure territory, with current market buzz circling around a staggering $934,000 for museum-level, once-in-a-generation pieces. That number alone should reset how you think about pennies forever. Funny how Lincoln's face suddenly looks a lot more confident, isn't it? Here's a quick pattern interrupt before we go deeper. Be honest. If someone offered you a penny on the street, you'd probably say a number. But if they said that penny could fund your retirement, you might tackle them for it. Jokes aside, this mental shift is critical. Wealth often hides in places we've been trained to dismiss. And this brings us smoothly into Act 2, the revelation. Act 2 is about understanding what separates an ordinary wheat penny from a legendary one. Condition is king. A 1946 no-mint mark penny graded at their highest mint state levels, with full luster, razor-sharp details, and zero wear, becomes exponentially rarer. Add in a mint error, such as a doubled die, misaligned strike, or unusual plankett, and suddenly you're holding something collectors may never see again in their lifetime. The market doesn't reward age alone, it rewards scarcity plus demand. And demand right now is fueled by wealthy investors, serious collectors, and even hedge fund-level buyers who see rare coins as tangible assets that survive inflation and economic chaos. Here's where urgency starts to tighten its grip. The supply of these top-tier 1946 pennies is not increasing, it's shrinking. Coins get lost, damaged, cleaned improperly, or spent by mistake every single day. Meanwhile, demand keeps climbing. More Americans are searching attics, estates are being liquidated, and auction houses are aggressively hunting for standout examples. Every year you wait is another year the market potentially moves without you. And here's the cliffhanger. What if the penny you inherited or tossed in a jar years ago is exactly what these buyers are desperate to find right now? Let's reset attention with the simple but powerful question. When was the last time you actually looked at your pennies? Not counted them, not rolled them, but really looked at them. This moment of awareness is often where fortunes begin, seamlessly transitioning into the practical side. Here's what smart sellers and aspiring wealthy collectors are doing today. They are getting their coins professionally evaluated. They are resisting the urge to clean them, which can destroy value instantly. And they are timing the market, understanding that headlines, record-breaking sales, and media buzz drive prices higher. Act 3 is where transformation happens. This is where you go from curious observer to empowered decision maker. Picture this. You uncover a 1946 no-mint mark wheat penny in exceptional condition. You verify it, authenticate it, and suddenly you're no longer someone who just owns old change. You're someone with leverage. You have options. Auction houses compete, private collectors make offers, and the conversation shifts from "is this worth anything?" to "how do I maximize its value?" That shift is the gateway to a different lifestyle, one built on awareness, patience, and strategic action. There's also a subtle fear here, and it's important to acknowledge it. The fear of missing out, the fear that you might sell too early, or worse, never realize what you had at all. This fear isn't meant to paralyze you, it's meant to sharpen you. Because knowledge is protection. And right now, you know something most people don't, that pennies, especially the right pennies, can be powerful. History has shown us that today's overlooked collectibles often become tomorrow's headlines. Before we close, here's one final cliffhanger to keep you thinking long after this video ends. Somewhere in the United States, at this very moment, someone unknowingly owns a penny worth more than $900,000. They might be watching this video. They might be you. The only difference between those who capitalize on this opportunity and those who don't is action. So take a closer look, ask the right questions, and remember, wealth doesn't always announce itself with a trumpet. Sometimes it arrives quietly, disguised as a single cent. If this story sparked curiosity, excitement, or even a little fear, that's a good thing, because those emotions are signals that it's time to pay attention to what you already own. The 1946 no-mint mark wheat penny is more than a coin. It's a reminder that extraordinary value often hides in plain sight, waiting for the person wise enough to recognize it. Imagine this, a single penny, brown, ordinary, forgotten in a jar somewhere in your house. Now imagine that same penny quietly carrying a price tag of nearly $1 million. Sounds impossible, right? That disbelief you're feeling right now is exactly why so many Americans unknowingly give away life-changing wealth every single year. Today, I'm revealing the astonishing story of the 1952 no-mint mark wheat penny, a coin so overlooked that it has slipped through fingers for decades, yet so powerful that one example has been valued at up to $967,000. And yes, some rare variations have sparked whispers of values climbing into the millions. If you've ever held on to old pennies, or thought they were worthless clutter, this video could change the way you see your pocket change forever. Act 1 begins in post-war America. It's 1952. The country is rebuilding, optimism is in the air, and pennies are everywhere. They're spent, dropped, ignored. No one is thinking about rarity or future value. The U.S. Mint strikes millions of wheat pennies that year, many without the mint mark, meaning they were produced in Philadelphia. At the time, that detail meant nothing. Today, it could mean everything, because hidden among those ordinary coins are ultra-rare examples that defy logic and rewrite financial destinies. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Some of those pennies are still out there, possibly in your home, possibly in your hands. Now let me ask you something uncomfortable. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny before tossing it aside? Most people don't. And that's exactly how fortunes get lost. The fear here isn't that you don't own a rare coin. The fear is that you might have already spent spent one without ever knowing its true worth. Imagine unknowingly buying a cup of coffee with a coin that could have paid off your mortgage. Ouch, that one stings, doesn't it? Here's where the excitement builds. The 1952 no-mint mark wheat penny becomes extraordinarily valuable under specific conditions. We're talking about pristine condition, sharp details, original luster, and most importantly, rare striking characteristics that separate common coins from legendary ones. Some examples show unusual metal composition, striking errors, or anomalies that make collectors and investors go absolutely wild. At high-end auctions, competition gets fierce, prices skyrocket, and suddenly, a 1-cent coin commands 6 figures. Sometimes more. Quick pattern interrupt. Be honest. If someone offered you a penny right now, would you bend over to pick it up? Most people wouldn't. Funny how the smallest things often hold the biggest power. That's not just about coins. That's about life. As we transition deeper into his story, let's talk about why demand is exploding. Baby boomers, seasoned collectors, and wealth-focused investors are aggressively acquiring tangible assets. Paper money loses value. Digital numbers feel unstable. But rare coins? They're real, they're finite, and they carry history. The 1952 wheat penny sits at the intersection of nostalgia and wealth preservation. That combination is deadly powerful in the market. When demand rises and supply stays locked in drawers, values surge. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. Here comes the cliffhanger. What if the penny you already own isn't just rare, but rare enough to change your lifestyle forever? The kind of lifestyle where debt disappears, choices expand, and financial stress finally loosens its grip. That possibility is what keeps serious collectors awake at night and keeps auction houses buzzing. Act 2 shifts from history to reality. Right now, today, the current market has seen a 1952 no-mint mark wheat penny reach valuations around $967,000 under elite conditions. That's not hype, that's documented market activity. And while not every coin reaches that level, the gap between a common penny and a rare one is knowledge, not luck. Knowledge, knowing what to look for, knowing who to trust, knowing when to act. Let me inject a little urgency here. Markets don't wait. Every year, more coins are authenticated, slabbed, and locked into private collections. Once they're gone, they're gone. Fewer opportunities, higher prices. If you're sitting on old pennies and waiting someday to check them, someday may be too late. The biggest regret collectors here isn't "I sold too early," it's "I didn't look sooner." Another quick reset question for you. If someone told you there was a lottery ticket already printed, already paid for, sitting somewhere in your house, would you ignore it? Of course not. Yet that's exactly what millions of Americans are doing with old pennies. As we move toward Act 3, the emotional shift becomes clear. This isn't just about coins. This is about empowerment, about reclaiming overlooked value, about stepping into a wealth-focused mindset. People who build wealth pay attention to details others dismiss. They see opportunity where others see clutter. The 1952 wheat penny is a symbol of that mindset. Here's the final cliffhanger. What if this video is the moment you look back on years from now and say, "That's when everything changed"? Act 3 is where action meets transformation. If you own old pennies, especially wheat pennies, especially from the early 1950s, your next step matters. Proper evaluation, professional grading, strategic selling. This is not a garage sale item. This is a potential asset, and assets demand respect. When handled correctly, they open doors to a wealthier, freer lifestyle. Picture this: you authenticate a coin, the grade comes back, the room goes quiet, the number on the paper doesn't feel real, but it is. And in that moment, a penny stops being small. It becomes proof that wealth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it waits patiently, disguised as something ordinary, until someone wise enough decides to look. So here is my challenge to you. Don't underestimate what you already have. Don't let fear or procrastination steal your opportunity. And don't assume that life-changing wealth has to come from risky investments or years of struggle. Sometimes, it's been sitting quietly in your possession all along.